Welcome to the Pitcher Nail Down. I'm Jason Gilbo, J Gilbo 11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J Clay. Taking a look at pitching on tonight's 12-game slate, and it's pretty top-heavy. We're loaded with options.
Top-heavy is definitely a way to describe it. I'd say we have like pretty much all the good pitchers, other than like Arrieta. So yeah, I'd say we're off to a pretty good start with pitching. I like this slate. I think there's a few ways to go, but it's pretty solidified in terms of who you want to pay up for, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And jumping right into it here, you got the Padres and Nationals. Max Scherzer against Edwin Jackson. Scherzer, obviously an expensive arm tonight, 13-1. They're on DraftKings, and he's 11-8. So a little bit of a discount from Jose Fernandez on DraftKings, not so much on FanDuel, just $300 difference. Obviously, great spot. I mean, big home favorite going up against this Padres team that's bottom 5 in WOBA. Big strikeout rate. And obvious, I mean, Scherzer's a guy who's playable in all formats. Yeah,
don't see teams projected for 2.5 runs very often, but this is gonna be bad. I really like Scherzer in cash. I don't know that you can really. I mean, you can definitely go to other options, but this is definitely the safest one to me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I mean, a minus 310 favorite at the moment. And as you mentioned, I mean, projected for under 3 runs for San Diego. It's pretty simple. Just Scherzer. I mean, you kind of expect another 8+ K outing. You expect to win. As far as Edwin Jackson on the other side, I mean, yeah, sure, he carried a no-hitter against the Giants going into, the 5th or 6th inning, but he won't be in play today.
No, he won't.
Indians and Orioles next here. Josh Tomlin versus Kevin Gausman. And given these two offenses, I just really have no desire to even think about using these guys.
Nah, yeah. It just doesn't seem worth it. I mean, you kind of like Tomlin's matchup a little better, but I don't see him shutting down this Orioles lineup, even if a few guys aren't in the lineup. It looks like everyone's going to be back today, but you never know. You never know with the Orioles of the last week or so.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this could be a really – I mean, you look at Tomlin this year, 1.84 home runs per 9 against a team that leads the league in homers. That could be a problem in Camden Yards.
Yeah.
And so I just think overall you look at, Tomlin's low 3 ERA. I think just given his strikeout rate, I mean, he doesn't miss a lot of bats. It could be an issue.
Definitely.
So, in Gausman on the other side, I mean, I do think he's a solid right-hander. Not quite sure he, has the juice in this matchup against this Indians team that struggled last night, but they really haven't most of the season.
Not worth it. Again, they're really a 1 through 8 lineup instead of the normal like 1 through 4, 1 through 5. So I don't think you want to mess with them, especially right now.
No, I'm with you. I don't think I am. Heading into the next game here, you got the Angels and Astros. Jared Weaver going up against Colin McHugh. As far as DraftKings go, Colin McHugh, I mean, he's a guy who I'm considering just given he's only just 7,100, and with all the expensive pitching on the slate, I don't mind it. And obviously McHugh's a little up and down. I mean, like a lot of the peripheral numbers, but you look at this matchup against an Angels team that's really not that good against right-handed pitching. They don't strike out a ton. And you also got to look, I mean, Houston's a pretty solid favorite at minus 177.
Yeah, I like that call. I think he's got a decent shot at a win, reasonably priced. I think that's a good call for a tournament. I don't think you can throw it out there on DK and cash as an SP2 or anything like that, but definitely a nice tournament guy.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, kind of gives you a little bit of salary relief in that back end.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Jared Weaver goes, you get the Astros, projected for over 5 runs here. He's cheap, but he's a guy who, in bad ballparks like that, it's just one of those things where I'm just going to stay away.
Yeah, for sure. I don't see that being worth much in terms of his fantasy points tonight.
Yeah. Tigers and White Sox next one here, Chris Sale versus Matt Boyd. And Chris Sale, for me, sort of gets lost among some of the options, I guess. Obviously, I mean, he's going up against the Tigers offense that's been kind of boomer bust against lefties. 21.5% strikeout rate, 18th in WOBA. But I just feel like he's not quite priced down enough from Scherzer for me to kind of really spin down to him. And I kind of like David Price as well if I want to keep dropping down to make a true difference from guys like Fernandez and Scherzer.
Yeah, and I mean, if you were getting a deal on ownership with him, maybe it'd be worth it. But I don't think you are. I mean, he's going to be lower owned than a Scherzer, but it's still not going to be like 5% or anything like that. So what advantage in that tournament are you really getting? I agree with you. I think he's kind of in that mid range where he's in no man's land for me in terms of, I'd just rather move up or move down, but obviously still a solid option.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's gone up against this Tigers team and has done well against them before. He's started against them twice, one up and down start, but obviously we know what Chris Sale can do. I just think at that price, like I kind of rather just go all the way up to Scherzer or make a little bit of a drop down.
That's what I mean. I try to use the starters that are minus 300 favorites when I can,
Yeah, and you look, I mean, yeah, and guys who are like almost a lock for 8+ strikeouts. It just Sale doesn't check off as many boxes for me as guys like Fernandez, as guys like Scherzer do tonight.
Right.
So. Matt Boyd on the other side, I'm not really looking to use him. I mean, obviously he's coming off a strong start. Pitched pretty well in the last 2 games. I mean, against reasonable opponents, Minnesota and Toronto. Still not the biggest fan of his, just because he doesn't really miss a ton of bats. And I don't really see him doing that here today. I mean, Chicago, obviously the offense has been pretty bad for most of the season, but against lefties, they haven't been really that bad.
Yeah, and the last time he faced them, he only went 4 innings, 6 earned runs, and he allowed 2 homers. So I'd definitely be careful with him, even though he is coming off a good start.
Yeah, I think so. I think the floor is a little bit lower. I mean, obviously he's shown a decent ceiling for the price tag, but I'm a little hesitant.
Right.
Twins and Red Sox here. You get David Price and Ricky Nolasco. Boston minus 245 favorites. And for me, I like David Price as a GPP option, coming off a really bad start against the Yankees. But you go back through that stretch, I mean, there was a lot of 10, 11, strikeout performances. And I think another one could happen here just because you look at the Twins and strikeout rate over 23% against lefties. Obviously, they do hit lefties well, which is kind of all those right-handed bats. But I think Price is definitely worthy of a GPP look.
He's so confusing because, he does have 3 10K strikeout or more games in his last 5, but he also has allowed like 16 earned runs in those games. So it's like you're literally getting both sides of the coin in every game. It's really strange. But, I like this matchup. Again, I think some of the righties at the top of that lineup might be able to get to him a little bit, but I don't see them all getting to him, so maybe he allows 1 or 2 runs, but at the same time, that strikeout rate's there. Vegas is with him, and the price is pretty reasonable compared to Scherzer and Sale. So, I don't mind it. Is he cash for me? Yeah, he's right on the edge, but probably not quite in cash for me.
Yeah, he's that borderline play. I mean, obviously on FanDuel, he's just strictly GPP, but I think DraftKings, I mean, it is borderline just because you look.
I couldn't knock someone for doing that. It's right on the edge.
And you look at those games, I mean, the first game against Tampa, the second game against Texas, I mean, 2 10-digit strikeouts. He didn't pick up the win in either of those. So, I mean, if you look, he picks up a win there, 23 and 29 points. I mean, he can kind of give you that balance. If he does give up 3 earned, but he has the strikeout pitch working and he goes deep into games, it kind of balances itself out and he pays off his price tag. So that's what kind of makes him that's what intriguing in cash games. Andy is a little bit cheaper. But I do think there is a little risk to his name as well.
Yeah.
Ricky Nolasco, good luck, sir. I mean, we saw Kyle Gibson do a pretty good job, but I don't think Nolasco's capable of taming the Sox offense.
I don't think he's pretty good with home runs. It's just the WOBAs to both sides of the plate are just out of control. It's just going to be a hit fest the Mookie Betts and Xander Bogarts of the world, I feel like, are just gonna clean house on Alaska today.
Yeah, and much like the Indians, I mean, they're such a deep team where you're really just locking through 1 through 9, where it's really tough to get through. So you get the Red Sox projected for right around 6 runs again, kind of an easy stay away with Nolasco.
Yeah.
Diamondbacks and Reds, Kavia Sampson versus Robbie Ray. At first glance, I gave Robbie Ray a look just because I need to be intrigued with some options here as far as cheaper guys on the slate, but I just feel entitled. I need to do that.
Sometimes you just want to build the narrative and then hope it fits. You go, okay, maybe this will work, and then you try to build it. And I'm assuming when you tried to build that argument, it just didn't come through for you.
I mean, he's been really solid.
Yeah.
I mean, 6+ strikeouts over his last 10 starts has been really good. I mean, I do like that about him. Obviously, you hate the ballpark, and the Reds have kind of heated up a little bit. But the one thing that you do like, I mean, Votto's dialed in right now, but you got to like the matchups with Hamilton and Bruce, the lefty on lefty. Obviously, you got to worry about Duvall and Cozart a little bit. Yeah. But after that, I mean, it's not too bad for Ray. I do think he's a worthy GPP option given his price.
And we've seen the Reds splits versus lefty versus righty. I mean, it's a totally different world for them. So, yeah, I worry about Duvall and maybe even a Brandon Phillips later in that lineup. But at the same time, I mean, he makes getting through Votto and Bruce a little more reasonable with that lefty-on-lefty matchup. So they are projected for 4-6 runs, but that might be a little inflated. I mean, I could see a range of outcomes where he only allows 2 or 3 runs, and if he can keep that strikeout rate up, I mean, that's hitting value for his price, you know?
Yeah, I mean, 26% strikeout rate this year. You do look at this Reds offense, bottom 10 in WOBA against lefties, nearly 23% strikeout rate. I think price considered, he's worth a look. Small favorite. I mean, the only thing that I just hate is they do have some power in that lineup, and in that ballpark, it's enhanced a little bit more. So, a couple shots could be a knock to Ray right off the table.
I'll definitely be throwing Duvall in tournaments, at least at that price. But, yeah, so.
It's definitely something to consider, I think, on a slate that doesn't offer much cheap pitching.
Right.
Kavia Sampson on the other side, I'm not really looking to use him against this Arizona offense in this ballpark. A little less attraction for me, even though he's just 4K on DraftKings there.
No, yeah,
it's
I dig his name though. Give him that. We'll give him that at least, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we got to give him something for a parting gift.
Yeah, exactly. A little chocolate that's been sitting there for 6 months. You just kind of hand it to him. Here you go, sir. One for you.
Cubs and Brewers here. John Lackey versus Zach Davies, and I think we can jump and get Davies out of the way pretty quick against this Cubs offense. Lackey's a guy who's been trending downwards really over his last start, and I kind of wish he was a bit cheaper. He did kind of rebound against Texas. He did like that. The strikeouts were back up in his last 2. But overall, I mean, he hasn't really been that reliable, like kind of prior to the June months.
No, he hasn't. I mean, he had a really nice stretch there for about a month and a half. And it's not horrible. It's not like he's getting shelled, but it seems like the wheels are not coming off, but they're starting to wobble a little bit. Now, I think the Brewers are a team where they could average that out for him. You know, the strikeout rate's high. They're really inconsistent. So, I mean, Braun got his homer last night, so I'd assume that means at least a few games without one. And no, but honestly, though, I think this is a pretty decent matchup for him, and it's going to be super contrarian. I don't see many people being on him. So, I mean, it's kind of an interesting pivot off of a David Price, I think, in that range or something like that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and Lackey's kind of sort of the last tier, I guess you could say, of the expensive pitching. I do like his price tag a lot on FanDuel at 8,800. If you wanted to take a cheap shot in pitching and hope he gets that big strikeout game and kind of matches an 8 or 9K, because you know Scherzer and Fernandez are going to get that strikeout rate, and that's the thing where you don't want to fall behind. And I do think Lackey in this matchup, he could have it. You just look at the Brewers, as you mentioned. I mean, they could kind of average that out. 24th in WOBA, a monster 26% strikeout rate. So if he picks everything up and kind of everything clicks for him today, and you're getting a discount from a Scherzer, and maybe he doesn't quite surpass him, but comes close, and you can get all those bats in with them, it's worth a look for me.
We would have a much different perspective on this if he was on a slate a few days ago. If this was like on that 7-gamer, we would have been drooling over this match.
He would have been a cash game guy.
But it's just like, what are you going to do? He's competing with Chris Sale, Scherzer, and Fernandez. So it just changes the dynamic so much, Yeah,
it definitely does. And the thing is, I mean, my biggest issue with him on DraftKings is just the price tag. I think that's the only thing that kind of kills me. Right. About it. I wish it was maybe 1,500, 2,000 cheaper.
Yeah, exactly.
So still, I do think GPP option. I think that's where we've kind of come to sit with him. Mm-hmm. Mets and Marlins next, and you got Jose Fernandez versus Jacob deGrom, and this one, a real battle of arms here. I mean, Jose Fernandez is just
a monster.
He's out of this world, and the strikeouts are just absolutely insane. I mean, coming off a 14 strikeout game, you look at, his 2 starts against the Mets, 19 strikeouts over 12 innings pitched, allowed just 1 earned. My biggest concern, I guess you could say more so on FanDuel, is that maybe he doesn't get the win. And that's 12 points.
Yeah, I mean, 3 of his last 7 outings have been 13 strikeouts or more. It's just stupid. And obviously he's gotten 7 or more in every outing. So it's like automatic. Pretty much whoever he's going up against. Gotta like this Mets team. The Mets lineup right now that he is going against. I mean, they're projected for 3 runs. So Fernandez and Cash. I mean,
I'm for sure. Yeah, he's a swerve off Scherzer. I guess you could say in a way. I guess my thing is just Scherzer's a bigger lock for a win. I think that's where he might slightly edge out Fernandez for me. It's just because I do see him getting an easier win just because Jacob deGrom's pitching against a Marlins team that really hasn't looked good against average pitching over the last week or so.
Yeah. So on FD, I really don't. I agree Scherzer has the slight edge, but I think really those are the 2 you're looking at for cash game arms. And on DK, you want to put both of them in. I don't know if it's going to work though. I don't know if there's enough, Yeah,
I mean it's an expensive duo there.
27K for 2 guys. I don't know if that's manageable, but I would definitely at least throw them in there and see if you can make a roster out of it.
It would be fun. I mean, I think the other time, it was a week ago when we had Fernandez and Sale on the same slate, and a lot of it helped out with the batting prices for a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
But it was possible. I mean, tonight it is a little bit tougher, but at least you have a bigger slate to kind of work and wait until lineups come out to see.
Definitely.
It would be fun to see if you can do that, but it's tough.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to end up happening. I think David Price is probably going to be the one you end up swerving down to, at least, Yeah,
I think so as well. And on the other side, obviously deGrom, solid right-handed arm going up against a Marlins team that's middle of the road. And deGrom coming off a fantastic start, 1 hitter against the Phillies. Just pitched against Miami the other day, 25 DK points. For me, once again, he's kind of like Sale. He kind of gets lost. I'd rather spin down to a David Price, who I think has a little bit more upside, better chance at a win. And kind of the same thing goes on FanDuel. I don't think there's quite enough there for me to pivot off or pivot to him.
Yeah, the deGrom Lackey Price grouping, That could be interesting in tournaments. Like I feel like you could make some pretty funky lineups, maybe get a little more value in the bats. He is in play. It's just tough again on this slate. You're just not gonna compete with the top two there.
No, I don't think so either. Dodgers and Cardinals next one here. Mike Leake versus Kenta Maeda. And for me, I mean, you're looking at these two offenses. Cardinals obviously better. Still not fantastic of late. I don't think I can consider Maeda here still going up against them. And also, I don't think I can really consider Leak going up against the Dodgers. I think this game's just kind of an unattractive, really on all sides here. I mean, Leak's pitched relatively well over those last two starts, but I do think it's a little bit matchup dependent going up against Milwaukee and San Diego.
I mean, Leak's pitched really well. 10 and 11 strikeouts in his last two outings. I don't know that you can put him in here. See, what you worry about tonight is, like you mentioned, you just don't want to fall behind. Really, like you could just fall behind, if you don't have one of those aces. So you kind of worry about that with these two. Where is the upside compared to the rest of the slate? But at the same time, I look at a Leak. I think that's some reasonable upside with what he's shown the last two. And I mean, we've seen the Dodgers they play a lot of low scoring games. Obviously, that's because of their home park there, but it's not like they're playing in Coors tonight either. So I think it's conceivable to play Leak and hope he keeps it going. But at the same time, this matchup is kind of limited upside, I think.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I mean, I'm a little bit more not optimistic that he keeps it rolling as far as the strikeouts go. Just because you look at this Dodgers offense, I mean, yes, they've been fairly average this year, 21% strikeout rate against right-handers, so still a decent rate, but it's not 26%. It's not 24% like the Padres and Brewers just gave him. So it's just a little bit of a different matchup for me to kind of consider that he'll keep it rolling. Do I think a quality starts there? Definitely. Especially with that lineup that's kind of banged up right now. So, on a different slate, I give him more of a look, but I just don't think I can kind of consider given I feel the need for tremendous upside tonight from pitching.
I agree. And yeah, as I mentioned, I think the upside is where you worry about that matchup.
Yeah. Rangers Royals next one here. Cole Hamels versus Rodano Ventura, and Hamels had an interesting price tag for me to kind of give a glimpse at. If come off a strong start against the Cubs. I mean, he had two horrible starts against Minnesota. Obviously, a Royals team that has hit lefties pretty well this year. Hamels could be a GPP option, just given the price tag. I mean, he's a little bit of a swerve, from some of those other guys. Small favorites, in a decent ballpark. I don't mind him.
Yeah, I talked about Lackey being low owned. I think Hamels is going to be really low owned too. And again, he's all over the place, so you might have a dead lineup within the first few innings. But at the same time, like you saw last start, and I mean, he's been throwing in quality starts sort of randomly throughout the year. Pretty decent spot tonight against the underperforming Royals lineup so far this year. So I don't mind it as a deeper tournament play. It's just he does kind of have a little bit of upside for me, so I could see that going your way if you're making a bunch of lineups.
Yeah, I definitely could too. And you're done with Ventura on the other side. I think because he's 5,400, I don't hate it in GPPs. I really don't.
Lord, Jason! Oh, Lord, Jason!
It's
I will pray for you tonight, Jason.
I mean, we need someone. I mean, we're diving down here, and we need someone to kind of talk about in this range. And I do think we'll talk about someone in a game here shortly. But you're Donovan Ventura. I mean, 5,400. I mean, Texas is projected for right around 4 runs, and obviously this Rangers offense is, fairly average at best. I think you're missing Chu. Fielder's gone. Obviously, he wasn't a big factor, but you look at this lineup. I mean, it's not too intimidating for me to kind of consider. And obviously, if Ventura, I mean, his, I'm going to use your term, range of outcomes here is completely all over the map. I mean, it could be in the negatives. It could be 20 DK points, and we're looking strictly DK as an SP2. But I just mean, if you want to get Scherzer and you still wanted to get that next tier of bats, then you kind of would have to maybe plug in Ventura and a GPP. And I mean, he's coming off 2 strong starts against 2 tough opponents in Detroit and Seattle, throwing relatively deep into the game, just didn't pick up the win.
So, and that's the difference between Ventura and Leak on DK is that Ventura can get 20 and like that's good, like that you'll be happy with that. And I think that'll keep you in the range with all those other star pitchers pretty much no matter what. If Leak gets 20, I think you're still at risk of really falling behind there, with sort of, because you're not necessarily, you're losing like 3K at that. So I do understand that. I'm not necessarily in on Ventura, but I can see making that move for salary and sort of value reasons,
Yeah, I mean, that's basically all it is just a deep tournament option to kind of pair with the top arm to help relieve some of that salary. Because really, I mean, as we mentioned in that middle range, we talked about Robbie Ray a little bit, talked about Colin McHugh. I do feel those are more so McHugh are safer options. But if you did want to make that next jump down and get maybe an extra 2K, I don't mind Ventura.
Mm-hmm.
So. Coors game next here, Tyler Anderson, Matt Whistler, and for the third day in a row, I don't mind a Coors pitcher again. I liked Bettis, I like John Gray, and here I go again, I like Tyler Anderson. The Braves haven't really been helped out by this Coors atmosphere. They've been pretty abysmal against both pitchers, and we've known their status against lefties, 29th in WOBA, 21% strikeout rate, so at Anderson's price, 5,700. He's pitched well in Coors at times. I mean, he threw a quality start against Toronto in Coors. I mean, that says something about what he can do. So now you put the Braves into play here, and I do think he's a worthy shot.
Only the Braves.
Yeah,
only the Braves would make this like a viable thing to say on a podcast. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you tonight. I mean, 5,700. Obviously, it's priced down because of Coors, but I think, I mean, we saw it yesterday. Other than a few big hits, it wasn't really that strong of an outing for the Braves. So I think this is another solid matchup for a lefty. And I think anything that Coors does is kind of averaged out by that handedness. So I'm in on this quite a bit.
Yeah, I think
for the price, obviously.
Yeah, you gotta like the price, and we're talking DraftKings. I think you and I can probably agree here that.
Any of these lower end options, I don't really see as viable on FanDuel. I just don't. That's bigger cojones than I have. I'll tell you what, if you're doing that.
We could probably say on FanDuel that Lackey would be the lowest we go at 8,800.
Yeah,
would probably be considerably the lowest I'll take a chance on.
Right.
So, but given that guys are 13K, given you're going to fill 2 SP spots, given you want to probably get a bat or two in with them, you're going to have to make some tough decisions to kind of pay down. And I like rolling the dice on some of these cheap guys tonight in tournaments.
Agreed.
To pair up.
Agreed.
Matt Whistler, not a big fan here in this matchup. I think you're looking at a lot of these Rockies bats who are projected for nearly 7 runs. Whistler, I mean, I'm outside of Coors. I do take chances on him at times, but this is a different story.
Oh yeah, no, solid for the Braves. But
solid for the Braves. For the rest of the league, I don't know.
But the projected run totals headed north to 7 for the Rockies here. So I think you fire away with those lefties and Arenado. This could be an ugly one, folks.
Yeah, I think so too. So definitely a stay away even at 4,100.
Yeah.
Rays and A's here, Kendall Graveman, Drew Smyly. I mean, we saw a 1-0 game last night between Sean Manaea and Jake Odorizzi. Tonight, I'm a little bit hesitant on saying that the A's will be shut down, but as far as the Rays go, I'm kind of intrigued with Kendall Graveman. I mean, obviously he's not a strong arm, but Coming off 3 quality starts. I mean, Minnesota, Houston twice. Something that I didn't expect. He's shown some qualities this season against bad opponents. And you look at this Rays team, I mean, 25th in WOBA against right-handers, 24% strikeout rate. They're outside of Tropicana. Obviously Tropicana's not a hitter's park, but they're still away in the Coliseum that is a good pitcher's park. I don't mind Kendall Graveman. I do think he's, a decent shot at getting a favorite or getting a win, even though Vegas doesn't agree. It's a pick 'em, but I really don't hate it.
Listen here, Jason. I just wanted to do that. Okay. No, I don't mind it. Again, on this slate, it's not that you're reaching. It's just that we're looking for some pay down options here. I think he's actually a pretty solid option at that price. It is a solid matchup. I worry about Brad Miller a little bit, but in terms of the lineup as a whole, those righties, as you mentioned, their lineup isn't that great against righties. So I do like that matchup for him. Things are pointing in his direction. So yeah, I could see throwing him in there. I do worry a little bit about upside, but I mean, if you're playing deep tournament plays, these are the kinds of guys you're definitely taking a strong look at. And
the thing is, I mean, I think I think the topic of the show has been upside and trying not to get lost, behind. And on DraftKings, I mean, you pair Scherzer with Graveman. I mean, you got 3,600 left over. Much more reasonable than pairing him with, let's just say, a Price and getting 32. So you kind of maybe get into the next tier of bats that hope you can make up. And obviously, I think you're using that SP2 piece as a cheap guy to kind of piggyback onto Scherzer's upside. And so, maybe Graven does get 15 and 20 points, but you do get that next tier of bats and you can kind of make up difference that way.
Definitely.
So it's just one thing to consider. And Drew Smiley for me, I kind of like a lot of those ace bats a lot tonight with those right-handers. So I like them too much for me to kind of stay away. But I wouldn't fault you just given his cheap price tag of 5.9. I like some other cheap options closer, but I wouldn't fault anyone for picking on A's offense that can be up and down at times.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, I think we go Graveman there and maybe throw a few A's in the lineups there.
Yeah, definitely Smiley's not a guy I'm using personally tonight. So, that's going to wrap things up here with the Pitcher Nail Down. Be sure to check out DaveFantasyCafe.com for all great tools and content.